to the issue of homelessness. Amara Ononiwu is on the board of something you'll learn that you probably didn't know about unless you're among those who are involved in this issue more directly. It's called the Continuum of Care. The Continuum of Care is a federal term for agencies that take responsibility for the homeless issue throughout the country. There are 400 of them. Pasadena is one of them, and in fact, we're one of only 3 cities in Los Angeles County that have our own continuum of care. We'll talk a little bit about the history of that. But Amara has been elected to that, representing the faith community. Her involvement has been through Lake Avenue Congregational Church and other countywide efforts to mobilize our churches and synagogues and houses of faith in this challenge. Many of you know Miskey, and all of you know Union Station, which is, for the last 30 years, been the preeminent homeless services agency in our city. And again, I want to emphasize no political endorsement here by Ann or by Union Station, but very few people have her depth of experience and expertise in the reality of not just at the street level, but how systematically we can tackle this problem. And my friend Dr. Joe Colletti, when I was mayor of the city in 1993, we wanted to challenge the U.S. Census homeless count because it seemed grotesquely low. And so I had read in Governing Magazine about a community back east that had done a homeless count. And so I approached Joe, who had already become involved in this issue, and we organized what turned out to be the first homeless count in California, the 3rd in the nation, and we counted almost 5 times as many people as the federal government did. And we did it with a process that we're going to be repeating this January, or February? January, the end of January. We now do this every year throughout communities all over the nation. And it's pretty much done the same way we did it back in 1993. Give everybody a bright colored t-shirt, give them a clipboard, send them out in groups of 4 to count folks. Clipboards have been replaced now with apps on people's phones. But other than that, it's pretty much the same. And we'll talk about why that's not adequate for 2023. But to sort of set us, to ground us in some facts as we begin to talk about what we do about the facts, I asked Dr. Colletti to, and by the way, he heads a group called Urban Initiatives, and he and his firm are consultants to literally dozens of continuum cares in California and beyond. Very few people in California have as close a grasp of what everyone is doing in our state. So I asked Dr. Colletti to just lay out some of the facts about homelessness in our community before we begin our panel discussion. Dr. Colletti.
Thank you, Rick. Facts equal data. And gone are the days in which we have to discuss homelessness based on anecdotal, subjective, and circumstantial information. Nowadays, we can rely on data that can reveal what we are doing well and what we are not doing well concerning homelessness. The accuracy of anecdotal, subjective, and circumstantial information can now be checked by data. As Rick mentioned, Pasadena is its own continuum of care. Yes, there are nearly 400 continuums of care throughout the country. The state of California is divided into 44. Los Angeles County is one that also consists of 3 cities. Most of the nearly 400 continuums of care are counties. Some are states, very few are cities. In LA County, 85 cities consist of the LA County continuum of care, and 3 cities, Pasadena, Glendale, and Long Beach, are separate continuums of care. and continuums of care are designed to use data for community-wide planning and strategic use of resources. So continuums of care are also designed to improve their data collection, and tailor its program for subpopulations such as youth, seniors, families, single adults, women, men, veterans, persons with mental illness, persons with substance abuse issues. Gone are the days in which we can put just any one of these within these subpopulations in any temporary and permanent housing bed. There was a time when I was a case manager that I had somebody who was homeless and said, give me any bed, anywhere, anytime, and I will put that person in that bed, thinking that that was going to resolve that person's homelessness thing. So, but gone are those days when you just put just anyone in any temporary or permanent housing bed. Data helps match persons to the right programs and beds. When I say data, data includes point-in-time counts. Yes, the next one is in January 23rd to be, this coming January 23rd to be exact. Point-in-time counts. Data also includes what's known as housing inventory counts, homeless management information systems, coordinated entry systems, and by name lists. Well, what are all those things? Just real briefly, a point-in-time count you may be most familiar with, and that is that where people go out, volunteers, to actually count your unsheltered and your sheltered population, and come up with not just a number, but like most continuums of care, Pasadena does a survey-based point-in-time count, which means that every person that's counted is asked if they would participate in a survey so that information would be gathered. Some of it is required by HUD, such as gender, race, ethnicity, age, but then there's mental health, substance use, HIV/AIDS, veteran status, and others categories. Then there's housing inventory counts, where HUD requires every continuum of care to count their emergency shelter beds, their transitional housing beds, what's known as permanent supportive housing, their beds, and what is actually known as rapid rehousing beds. So then you compare each year as to see where you are in regards to having enough beds for everybody. Homeless management information system, everybody is entered into the homeless management information system, which provides a lot of information. Perhaps the most important field is destination and exit. If you have 1,000 people that's in your HMIS system, which Pasadena does have, what happened to those 1,000 in terms of destination and exit? How many went into permanent housing? How many went back to the streets? How many went back into shelters? That information is now available, and you have all this information along with coordinated entry systems, which is simply where you wind up going to where, again, not just to get any bed, you go to a coordinated entry system point to where you are matched with the appropriate bed and program and services. So data also helps design what's known as evidence-based practices, best practices, promising practices, and emerging practices that are there. I can remember at a time when we were talking about closing the front door and opening the back door. This was like 15, 20 years ago. If you had 500 people who were homeless, let's close the front doors, meaning let's don't let any more people become homeless. We just want to deal with the 500 are here, and then let's open up the back doors to let people out. But we would say it in the singular, close the front door and close the back door. Open the back door, close the front door. We now learn that it's closing the front doors, not door but doors, and opening the back doors, not door, because each particular door, can be for a given subpopulation, one for youth, one for seniors. You have to deal with different folks, different subpopulations differently. You don't deal with all people the same. There's not a one-size-fits-all type thing here. Rick also mentioned about the homeless count, that comparing the homeless count, there was a 9% increase, which was in Pasadena, which was the same increase in LA County, and pretty much a little bit close to what's happening nationally as well. So then, you talked about, well, how many folks are unsheltered folks living on the street with mental illness? About a third. How about substance use disorder? About a third. Physical disabilities, a third. Chronically homeless, nearly 2/3 of people. So, I want to just kind of wrap up by saying this, that when data also helps inform funding. The city receives about $8 million in federal and state funding, and some of that comes from the feds, HUD in particular, state, and then even some from the county. Measure H, I know Union Station gives them Measure H funding. So let me close by saying this. We have more data than ever before. We have more evidence-based, best, promising, and emerging practices than ever before. We have more federal and state funding than ever before. We are getting more people permanently housed each year than ever before. Thus, we are in a position to say we can do more about making street homelessness what's known as rare, brief, and non-recurring than ever before. That's where we are at today.